Alright, Eagles rookie minicamp continues along, and one wide receiver is clearly turning heads by getting signed. Meanwhile, A.J. Brown got engaged, yet the critics and haters are back at it again. So I'll share why the Jalen Hurts and A.J. beef isn't that big of a deal, plus why everyone needs to reject the hate. Also, the Birds released some behind-the-scenes clips of Howie Roseman on draft night, and there's several storylines to break down. And the NFL is beginning to see just what a nightmare they're in for with Philly, yet the hilarious part is they did it to themselves. So let's talk about all that as well as a couple departures that we can now officially confirm. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? Happy Cinco de Mayo, or I guess I should say Happy BG Day, and with it being 5/5, I've got a signed Brandon Graham jersey I'm going to give away to one lucky subscriber, so all you got to do is hit the like button and go comment on this video to get entered. Alright, before we get into any football talk, I do want to start out with a big congratulations to A.J. Brown on getting engaged. That's right, the trend of Eagles players getting engaged or married continued as A.J. and his fiancée Kelsey announced on social media. And I gotta say, props to Swole Batman for the grand entrance. I mean, come on, dude had John Legend in attendance to sing for the group along with some of the finest decorations before popping the question. Where then afterwards, several friends and family were there to celebrate, including Eagles players like Devontae Smith, Jahan Dotson, Darius Slay, Nakobe Dean, Isaiah Rodgers, and Anaya Smith. But no, for anyone curious, based on all accounts and surveying the pic afterward, Jalen Hurts was not there.
Is that true? Tell me that's not true.
I'm sure he just had a scheduling conflict. It's no big deal.
Don't do that.
Sorry, maybe I shouldn't make light of the situation, but I'm also not like the hundreds of people responding or freaking out about QB1 not being in attendance. However, some did bring up the fact that Jalen made it to Jordan Mailata's wedding in Hawaii a couple years ago, plus reference Brandon Graham's unintentional leak about both Alpha's, relationship back in December when he said that they were friends, but things have changed, since after all, life happens. Either way, I don't think this is a big deal, but I at least wanted to provide some more context on what or why this is all getting blown out of proportion. I mean, there is a possibility that Jalen would have been there if he hadn't gotten married. Remember, he did get married in late April, so maybe he's out on his honeymoon.
I can't believe we're even talking about this. This is madness!
You're right. Look, if anything, I think the positives, like Elliott Shore-Parks pointed out, is that A.J. Brown had multiple guys from different positional groups on both sides of the ball in attendance. So the locker room vibes, the character, the leadership, it's all there with A.J. I don't know. Feel free to let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments, but I will remind what Eleven said about his relationship with One just a few months ago after winning the Super Bowl.
I can tell you that if we never had any issues. Like, we two guys, two alphas who wants to be the best and demand greatness from each other and everyone around us. So some reports are true, some reports aren't true. But me and him good, man. And, we just want to be great. And like I said, we push each other and sometimes, we bump heads, but that's normal, and don't nobody sweat it.
But let me ask you a question. Have you ever been in a locker room where players didn't bump heads? Players
push
didn't
each
have
other, right?
issues?
That's what I'm saying. It's so normal. But I think from the history of this team and with McNabb and T.O., everything is magnified times 10, and it's just not the case.
There you go. Nobody sweated, and let's make sure to give AJ a big congrats on the engagement. Because first off, Mr. Always Open is just a good dude. But secondly, the amount of impact and leadership and contributions to help Philly win a championship are almost incalculable. I mean, personally, I can't even imagine a world in which Howie Roseman didn't pull off a steal of a trade to get AJ back in 2022. And honestly, I think most Eagles fans, or heck, just NFL fans, realize just how much Howie Roseman fleeced the Titans in the trade for AJ Brown. Yet, as they say, hindsight's 2020, and it looks actually even worse after the fact. Because just this past week, the Titans declined the fifth-year option of wide receiver Treylon Burks. FYI, in case you're foggy, he was Tennessee's 18th overall pick in 2022 in exchange for sending A.J. Brown to Philly for a couple other picks. However, Burks was really the main part of that trade, and in 3 seasons, he has just 53 receptions for 699 yards and 1 touchdown in 27 games. So, with the wideout rehabbing from a torn ACL back in December and not even a lock to make the final roster, you can understand why the Titans might go in a different direction. Meanwhile, you probably already know this, but over the course of the same 3 seasons, A.J. Brown had over 4,000 receiving yards on 261 catches and 25 touchdowns. And then, of course, most importantly, a Super Bowl ring this past year. So, yeah, maybe a bit of regret boiling back up for Tennessee. In all fairness, Howie's missed on a couple draft picks in past years, aka Justin Jefferson, but it's been a while. And I think it's the fact that the Eagles have proven to learn and evolve from their past mistakes, plus Howie winning more trades than he loses that makes him different. which is just about the exact opposite of the Atlanta Falcons, who traded the LA Rams to eventually select James Pierce Jr. The thing is, they gave up their 2nd-round pick, 7th-round pick, and 2026 first-round pick for the Rams first this year. Something head coach Sean McVay and general manager Les Snead couldn't say yes to fast enough. And also, Howie Roseman's reaction to it was pretty funny as well.
Wow, they traded their one.
First next year. Who did?
For what?
Atlanta.
Land?
For what? Just the pick?
No,
First and a
they're
third.
2 and a 1.
Understand why people aren't taking our deals.
All right, first, that's hilarious. Second, in case you're not aware of just how bad of a trade that was for Atlanta, so based on the Fitzgerald-Spielberger trade evaluator, the Falcons literally lost the trade by at least a full 2nd-round pick. I mean, I feel for him, but let's also remember, this is the same team that drafted Michael Penix when they had Kirk Cousins and are still going to pay Kirk $40 million this season to ride the bench. Anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent. Sorry, we'll reel this thing back in here. The reason I brought this up is because you know Howie Roseman was trying to trade up to get Jihaad Campbell. Let's not forget, the rumors were that Philly started trying ever since the Chargers, or maybe before that, but nobody wanted to do business. Yet fortunately, thanks to the Eagles' social team, we got a better inside look at how it went down.
Say that again. The 32-64. Okay, give me 30 seconds. I'll call you back. Said do their deal or no.
Okay, that part is interesting, especially because according to Mike Florio, both sides had actually agreed to a deal, but it wasn't reported correctly and Los Angeles missed out. Now, who knows if it's legit because it's Florio, but if it is, then Philly definitely dodged a bullet. Like, had that happened, that would have meant no Andrew Mukuba. Also, I'll throw this out there because I saw several people mentioning it, but to the notion that the Eagles wanted to trade up at 22 to get Malachi Starks, that doesn't really make sense. For instance, after the Chargers' decline, Howie then ended up calling the Lions, Bills, and Commanders about trading up even after Starks had gotten taken by the Ravens. I mean, Howie wanted his guy, and that it being Jihaad Campbell. It's just like I've said before, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good.
Come on.
Nobody wants to trade down.
Well,
Acting like they have better
everyone's
trades,
saying
but
they are trading down,
No,
but
they
nobody
pick.
is trading down. I don't know what to tell you, Jeffrey. I'm trying.
I know.
I'm trying. I'm trying. And I'm trying. And one more thing. I'm trying. Hey, buddy. How we doing? Yeah, it's a tradition. I feel like you should keep keeping trades. Any interest in a small move back? Let's see. Said there's an in-division tax. You really didn't want to do a trade with me. Jihaad, we got you. You were a Philadelphia Eagle. Officially, we're on the clock right now. We just made a trade. Congratulations. We are so excited, man. Patience.
Unbelievable. We didn't try to be patient.
I know. I was going to tell you, this reminded me of
Oh, yeah.
LaShawn and
Totally.
Westbrook, where you just keep calling up.
Pretty sure those clips say it all, but you can tell just how much Jihaad Campbell meant to the entire room. Of course, I realize a lot of the questions or concerns about his shoulder surgery and the rehab that might cause a delay to get him on the field, but the Eagles knew that'd be the case, so there's no surprise there. But I'll tell you where the surprise was. That they could somehow land a guy that was in their top 10 on their big board at 31. Granted, people want to downplay it, and that's fine. Yet let me just warn the rest of the league that the next clip is why they're about to have to deal with a nightmare, and they did it to themselves.
Hey, you got Jihaad Campbell.
Can you believe that? Can you believe it? You knew he'd be there.
All right, we're taking Jihaad Campbell, guys.
That is phenomenal, and don't worry, if you didn't see it, I'll play it again. That right there is future Hall of Famer and godfather of the reigning #1 defense of the NFL, Vic Fangio. But most importantly, look at the excitement on the defensive coordinator's face. I mean, I'll let you be the judge, but I'm not even sure Vic had that much jubilation on his face right after winning the Super Bowl. Although I suppose you're right, the man is a mad scientist psycho. After all, he held the defense late after a Super Bowl parade meeting to let him know 22 points allowed in the second half was unacceptable. Still, you can't deny the fact that it takes a lot to get the 66-year-old fired up. So the fact that that was his reaction to getting Jihaad Campbell has to have the NFL a little bit uneasy.
What have we done?
Well, let me tell you what the NFL has set in motion. It's like when NFL executives said Fangio's got his Patrick Willis and Navorro Bowman back and Zack, Baun, and Jihaad Campbell. Now, okay, even saying that, I get it. Maybe we slow roll on one of the best linebacker duos to ever play the game. You know, since we're talking about a Hall of Famer with 5 first-team All-Pro selections in Patrick Willis and then a 4-time first-team All-Pro linebacker in Navorro Bowman. So look, maybe it's not at the same skill level, but you can't deny Zack Baun started out pretty good for his first year ever starting at off-ball linebacker to win first-team All-Pro. Regardless though, the bigger point that I wanted to make here is the similarities we're about to see. Case in point, Willis and Bowman had the green light to improvise and swap roles based on what they saw or what they were feeling the offense was giving them. Meaning, in case you hadn't come to this conclusion already, they made life a living hell for quarterbacks and it was almost impossible to predict what was coming next. So just saying, we've seen what type of trajectory Zack Baun can have under Fangio. Yet the reason the old ball coach was smiling was because he knows the range that Campbell has thanks to his speed and quickness. Plus he has a very low missed tackle rate at 7.3%. And I've mentioned this one before, but he's not afraid to get physical. But we're just getting started though, since Campbell's pass defense or potential in Fangio's zone match system is ideal. I'm not gonna lie, he's got all kinds of tape showing he can read a quarterback's eyes and make him pay. Or if Philly just wants to use him as a dime backer in coverage, he's got all the tools to lock down a receiver. Come on, his athleticism speaks for itself, but like Johnny Page said, this dude has the chance to be one of the best linebackers in the NFL. He's just an alien, and Fangio knows it.
Don't act like you're not impressed.
I get that we don't want to go overboard too quickly, and he's a 21-year-old rookie, so sure, he's going to have some growing pains, he's going to make some mistakes, but at the end of the day, the athleticism, versatility, and flat-out being a playmaker are insane to get at 31 in the draft. Which again is why I was saying Campbell would surely start out at off-ball linebacker and not edge. Like personally, as crazy as it sounds, yes, you've got to have some young guys step up, but the defense could legit be as good, if not better than last year. Yet I know, long way to go because we're barely to rookie minicamp, but how are you guys feeling about Jihaad Campbell, especially the more that you continue to learn about him? And how are you feeling about the Eagles resurrecting the fullback position? Yeah, in case you didn't catch it, owner Jeffrey Lurie joined WIP to share a little secret that the Birds have in the works.
You know what? We're gonna try to quietly resurrect the fullback position. Kevin Turner, yourself, maybe Ben can do some things here. We're gonna try for it. How's that?
Thank you. And I really do think there's a place for the fullback.
Oh, me too.
It's coming back.
Me too. We all
will.
How about that? Like, who doesn't want to see Ben Van Sumeren blocking for Saquon Barkley this season? After all, that duo was nearly unstoppable, even though it was used in a limited capacity, as the yards per carry for runs behind Ben were well over 5 yards per rush. Which isn't necessarily a surprise when you see that BVS, now as a full-time fullback, ranks as the 9th most athletic fullback in the NFL since 1987. Sorry, it's just too good, and there's so much insane potential with Saquon Barkley, this offensive line, Ben Van Sumeren, to not get just a little bit hyped about this. However, as some suggested, this does probably mean the likelihood of a Tush Push ban is even more evident. Yet between BVS and the Vanilla Gorilla, I'm confident short-yarded situations aren't going to get any worse. Look, I'll just say this. Who's to say that if the Tush Push ordeal hadn't even come up that the Eagles would have looked as closely at this fullback position or making it a full-time thing? So, just saying, the NFL did this to themselves, and it's kind of hilarious. Also, I did want to mention an official move while we're on the topic of minicamp because Giles Jackson turned enough heads to get signed. Unfortunately, that meant running back Tyrion Davis-Price was waived. Although the Washington wide receiver clearly showed enough to warrant further considerations as that return specialist /slot /gadget guy. Anyway, I'm not going to go all in on a breakdown here since I covered him on my last video, but it will be interesting to see how the competition behind AJ, Smitty, and Dotson shakes out. Now, one guy that we can confirm who won't be back in that competition, though, is Britton Covey. After the former wide receiver /returner said goodbye on social media, and then the Los Angeles Rams announced they've signed him to their roster. Granted, some people say Covey dealt with a nagging neck injury last season and couldn't even stay on the field. But personally, he'll definitely be a dude I appreciated most for his toughness and a team-first mindset. And then while we're discussing losses, the Eagles also officially lost their senior director of college scouting, Anthony Patch. This comes after the Las Vegas Raiders decided to poach him and offer him the title of senior personnel executive. Now, it's understandable if you're not as familiar with Patch, but he's been a long-standing figure as one of Howie Roseman's trusted advisors for college scouting since 2016. At the same time, we've seen close staff and advisors leave for other ventures, and the Eagles have held up just fine. So, no reason to worry about it, but best of luck to Anthony, and we'll see who ends up filling the new opening now. Obviously, I'll keep you updated all throughout that and anything else happening, but do me a favor for now, hit the like button, turn the notifications on, because I got some crazy giveaways on the upcoming live stream. Until next time, this has been the Philly Special.